Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Monkey Knife Fight Show here on Sharpside. I'm Turf Ferguson. I'm bringing you some of my favorite props over on Monkey Knife Fight. Haven't signed up for it yet? Making bad life choices. Sign up using promo code Grinders. Get a free 100% deposit bonus on your first $50. It's free money. All you got to do is play through it, and it is yours, and you don't even have to do any research. Just watch these videos multiple times a week, throw in these props, and let the money roll in. But before we get to that, don't forget to like and subscribe over on the Sharpside channel so you know exactly when these videos come out. Got 4 props for you today. 2 from the Lakers game, 2 from the Cleveland game. Stay tuned. All right, let's get to my first prop here. It's a 2 out of 3 rapid fire in the Cleveland game. All right, so first part of the prop here, we got total fantasy points, Love versus Beal. I am going with Love here. Beal is on the second end of a back-to-back. Played a decent amount of minutes last night. I know they've been limiting his minutes. He's finally got a bit more last night in the game before, but this is the second of the back-to-back. It is a good matchup going up against Cleveland, but Love, matchup versus Washington. Best matchup on the board you can possibly have here. Love should smash here. Love getting 1.5 points when I think he's the more likely candidate to outscore Beal here. Again, don't know what Beal's minutes are going to be, so I'm rolling with Love. Next up, Sexton versus Thompson here. Sexton is getting 2.5 points. I'm rolling with Thompson. We know that Washington is terrible against bigs. We know that they're a terrible rebounding team. We know that they run at a huge pace here. I have Tristan Thompson pegged for around 8 more points than Sexton here. Real simple. You go with Thompson. I know that they're a little bit better with Bryant in the game again. I know they've had a large portion of the season where they didn't have a single big to do anything, and they actually do now, but it does not matter to me. Thompson is the better play, and only giving up 2.5 points is way, way too few. Last up, Garland versus Bryant. It's clearly Garland. It's not really remotely close. Even though Garland is giving up 1.5 points to Bryant here, does not matter. His minutes have been real shaky. Second into the back-to-back. Been averaging around 16 minutes in every single game here. I know that Cleveland is not a good defense, but they are still a decent rebounding team with both Thompson and Love there. Going to take away from Bryant's rebounds here. Don't think he comes anywhere close to Garland. Only giving up 1.5 points. I'm taking Garland every single time. All right, next up, we have my second prop here. It's a 2 out of 3 rapid fire again in the Cleveland game. All right, so this one, not fantasy points. This one's total points here. Total points, Beal versus Sexton. Again, I already went through everything. Beal is on the second end of a back-to-back. Minutes have been limited a pretty decent amount recently. And Sexton, matchup versus Washington. Huge pace-up matchup here. It's a huge defensive matchup here. Everything is on Sexton's end, and he's getting 3.5 points. So, looking at Vegas, Sexton pegged for around 2 less points than Beal, and he has heavy juice on the over. I'm rolling with Sexton every single time. Rebounds, Thompson versus Love. Love tends to get a little bunch more boards in slower pace matchups. Thompson, on the other hand, has been crushing it on the boards recently. We look at his numbers here. 22 in the last game, had a few strings of 8 rebounds in games prior, but the Clippers game was on the second end of a back-to-back. Realistically, before that, 10-plus rebounds every single time. I know he's given up 2.5. Vegas currently has a peg for 2 more than Love, but heavy juice on the over. I'm rolling with Thompson. Last up, Garland versus Smith. Total assists. We don't have a prop for Smith yet for assists, but Garland pegged at 4.5 with heavy, heavy, heavy juice on the over. Again, up-paced matchup. Should suit him really well here. I think Garland ends up with more straight up, but he has the tiebreaker. A volatile category like this, I'm rolling with Garland. Next up, we have my fourth prop. It is a 2 out of 2 more or less in the Lakers game. All right, we got James pegged at 26.5 points. Guess what? Vegas has him pegged for 24.5. Over on the FanDuel Sportsbook, 24.5 with a neutral juice. So you're getting a nice little 2-point advantage here by taking it over here on Monkey Knife Fight, taking the less here. Next up, Kyrie, more or less than 23.5 points. He is currently pegged for 23.5 points on the FanDuel Sportsbook with minus 122 juice here. It's a game where we don't know how much he's going to end up playing. Lakers have some shutdown guards here. Kyrie likely to struggle. I'm taking the under of 23.5. I think it offers some nice value. All right, last up, we have my last prop of the night. Before I get to that, don't forget to like and subscribe over on the Sharpside channel. Again, sorry to mention it again, but do it and I won't have to. But let's get to my last prop of the night. It is a 2 out of 2 rapid fire in the Lakers game. All right, I kind of went through this a little bit. James, Kyrie, James is giving up 3.5 points. I'm still going with James. He still has to do a lot in this offense here. Davis is limited. I am rolling with James because I don't think Kyrie does a whole lot of anything in this matchup. Again, Vegas sportsbooks favor James a little bit more, but not by much. I'm still rolling with James. So take it, leave it, move on. Next up, Allen versus Davis. Again, Davis been getting his minutes limited a drastic amount recently. This is a second of the back-to-back. We don't know how many he's going to actually get. And Allen, DeAndre Jordan might be out. Allen in for some more playing time here. I'm rolling with Allen getting 1.5 rebounds. Last 4 games, he has had over double-digit rebounds. Vegas currently has him pegged for over double-digit rebounds. So Allen, without DeAndre Jordan here, I know that Los Angeles has been very good versus big men, but Allen, I think, is going to be crushing the boards. Jordan is out. He's in for an increased minutes load, over 30 in 2 of the last 3, so I'm rolling with Allen. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll be back again tomorrow giving you some more props. I'm out of here. See you, kids.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on Draftkings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist.
What's going on, Grinders? Welcome to the DFS Strategy Show. I'm your host, Travis Mangone, with a new face that you guys might not know. His name is SBK. He is the maker of projections, the protege of Soccer Dave, and a Philly sports lover. SBK, how's it going over there, man?
It's going good, man. It's nice to be on my first live show. I've kind of dabbled a little bit between podcast and morning grind. I was on with Stevie and Noto about a year ago. We ran that one for a little while and did some premium shows back in the day. So it's not my first cup of coffee, but definitely my first live show. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, excited to dive in and break down the stuff with you today. How about this? Before we kind of dive in, talk about like what you do here at RotoGrinders, right? You're on the projections team, and projections are awesome, right? They're some of the best things in the business. And talk about the RG projections and what you guys are doing all day.
Yeah, so I'm just one member of a team. So we have a handful of guys that contribute there. But yeah, a big part of my role is doing the initial projection edits. And I also kind of monitor them throughout the day. I manage our alerts team, news. So that definitely keeps me busy throughout the day for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure you're very busy getting those projections ready for the people here that are subscribed over here on RotoGrinders. We do have a couple things I want to talk about before we dive in and talk about the slate. First thing up, if you guys hit that like and subscribe, we would really appreciate it. If we get 20 likes here, you know what we get? We get 200 likes. My bad, 200 likes. If we get 200 likes, we get Blender's premium tutorial. That is a Roto Academy course, which he will break down his entire lineup building process and show you kind of what he's doing. And if you live in the daily fantasy sports in 2020, you know that building multiple entry lineups is important. It's a great way to win a ton of life changing money. So Blender will help you out with that. If you could give us 200 likes, We really, really, really appreciate that, and we will reward you with a nice free video. Also, we got a sharp side streak contest going on over here, guys. If you get 5 or more streaks in a row, you end up getting some FanDuel credit over here on the sharp side app. If you get 10, then you get like $20 of credit, and it keeps going up all the way to 30 as a streak. So all you have to do is go on the sharp side app and hit the lock button on a minus 143 bet or less, and you can start swiping and start collecting some free money. Last thing up, we got to talk about the RotoGrinders badge promotion that we got going on over here. If you haven't started doing that, put the RotoGrinders badge on your FanDuel or Draftkings, whatever site you play's logo. Put that on there, and you can get some opportunities to win some premium and whatnot. But we got Swaganometry is one of our guys who just joined in, Beamers Boys, and this guy's name is Brandon Bragland. Thank you guys for joining and jumping in on the RotoGrinders badge. SPK, what do you think about all that stuff? Free money and free opportunity to get some premium? How's that sound?
Yeah, dude. I mean, how can you complain with that? The sharp side promo has been awesome, and hopefully we can both get our streaks going here today too.
Yeah, man, we'll talk about that as we dive in. And let's dive in. Let's kind of talk about this slate. Again, it's a 3-game slate. We have a lot of time to kill. And I'm excited to talk about it since there's a lot of good strategy to go along the way. We're going to start off talking about this Wizards-Cavs game because a lot of the other games, they got tons of stars and there's tons of different stuff to talk about. But this is a game that it has a high total and some interesting players. So, SPK, what's your first look on this game?
So, yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see some offense. These two teams are the worst two teams in defensive efficiency so far this season, which kind of explains the total. You don't generally see Cleveland with this type of implied total. If you watched their game against the Knicks on Martin Luther King Day, they could not hit broadside of a barn. They were awful offensively, but they're in a much better spot to kind of turn that around here. Washington is coming off an overtime game they played last night in Miami, had to travel to Cleveland today. They are also on their 3rd game in 4 nights. So that for that reason, I'm kind of a little bit wary of heavily investing in Bradley Beal. He played his most minutes since Christmas last night. So I could potentially see them kind of easing up on him a little bit. But regardless, it's a great game to target. Davis Bertans is we've started to see his minutes rise a little bit. Coming off his injury, he was a little bit limited. We kind of saw him in the mid-20s. I believe he played 32 last night. He did see 5 minutes in overtime, so that's a little bit inflated. But given his price and just the role that he has right now, he's still a little bit too cheap. I think he's viable in all formats.
Yeah, let's talk about Bertans a little bit because I think he's an awesome play. And one reason I want to bring him up is if you look at his price tag on FanDuel, right? He's 4.5K over there, which is too cheap. And he doesn't really fit that scoring, but even on DraftKings at 5K, he fits that scoring really, really well. So, and again, this is one of those great games, right? Wizards and Cavs, 2 terrible, terrible defensive teams. So I expect a lot of points to be scored. I expect you want to have some good exposure to this game and then mix in some of the stars in the other games. So, Bertans is definitely looking to be a really nice value play.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple other value options here. I don't think any of them are terribly safe. Thomas Bryant is a guy who I think people kind of thought when he came back that we'd start to see Jan Mahinmi play a little bit less. That hasn't really materialized yet. We've seen Bryant under 20 minutes last night. He did get to almost 22 against Detroit. So given the permitted upside, there's maybe a little bit of GPP appeal there. Outside of that,
well, here's a question. Here's a question with Thomas Bryant, SBK. I wanted to ask you. Sure. So Mahinmi's been getting a lot of work. You got him here projected at 19 minutes, right? But he's going to be 1% owned. This is a 3-game slate. We need to find ways to get different, right? What are the chances his minutes uptick out of nowhere? What's the reason why he's not really getting that run, you think?
I mean, Mahinmi's been pretty solid. They've kind of shut down or, kind of been better against center since he's been more of a part of that front court. Given how many minutes he played last night, and again, this is a third game in 4 nights, I could see Bryant getting into the low 20s. It's just kind of something, you're gambling on a little bit. There's not a whole ton of safety there.
Yeah, and Scott Brooks, he's the type of guy, he's playing all his different guys' minutes, and if someone's playing better, he's going to give them longer runs. So at 1% over ownership over here on RotoGrinders, I get it. The point per dollar is not the greatest at 4.2, but might be a guy worth taking a shot on a little bit, looking at his salary at 4.7. Again, this is a 3-game slate, right? You got to be different. You have to find some type of ways You just can't play all the chalk and win all the money. In cash games, maybe, but not in the large field tournaments. That's going to be a little bit tough. You got to find a differentiation play. Let's talk about Bradley Beal again, because he's a great guy that you mentioned, and we talked about his minutes and it being a 3 and 4 nights. We have him projected at 40% ownership. How are you going to approach him in tournaments? I think he's a guy, in your optimal lineup, I think he pops a ton. He's a guy you're going to look at 7.7K. But at that 40% ownership, how would you be approaching him in large field GPPs?
So I think you kind of nailed it. I do think he's going to be popular. I think the price kind of keeps him in that cash game realm. But I think, again, the reasons I said earlier with this being last night being the most minutes he's played in a game since Christmas or before Christmas, like the 23rd, he played 38 minutes. But given that, there's definitely a chance they could limit him a bit. You can see there we have him projected for 32 minutes, which is a little conservative based on what he saw last night. But I don't think there's any guarantee that he is pushed that hard again here. So in tournaments, I am a single entry GPP player, so I think I will not have Bradley Beal exposure in my one lineup. It kind of depends on construction a little bit, and there's not a ton at the shooting guard spot that's really attractive to pivot to, which is another reason why I think we have him at that projected ownership. So for me, I'm going to try to find a way to not roster him. There's a couple studs that we'll get to in the later two games that are priorities for me. So he's not someone I'm trying to jam in. If he ends up there out of need because of the weakness of shooting guard, I'm fine with it. But he's definitely not a priority play for me.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I do think he's a great, cash game play. The tournaments, it could get a little dicier. And with that ownership, I think there's reasons to maybe take some pivots off. Again, though, like you talked about, the shooting guard position, there's not the greatest pivots. And maybe if we get CJ McCollum in, that could be kind of interesting. We'll have to see what his ownership ends up and see if we get that news in time. If we do get the news, we'll break it down for you guys in real time. We got people in the chat. We got Yasmin talking about his streak he has going on. He's at a streak of 4 after Colin, so he's 1 streak away. So good luck with whatever streak that you ride with tonight, Yasmin, or if you wait till tomorrow to make sure you lock that thing in. Good luck. We also got Chris Jamino. He's talking about the Thomas Bryant ownership. He said 1%'s a bit too low, so he's going to manually bump that up. We can, refresh it throughout the show and see what the bump ends up being. But let's talk about some other plays, and we're talking about Wizards guards. Let's dive in these other guys. Jordan McCree, he's 5K. It's a little bit of a revenge game for him, too. I don't know how much you factor that into the projections over there at RotoGrinders here, SBK. But you got him. You got Isaiah Thomas, who I think you want to talk about a little bit. So discuss some of these guards and what you're kind of doing with them on the Wizards side of the ball.
So they're a little tricky. McRae's awesome. When he gets to run, his per minute upside is up there with, anyone at the shooting guard spot, especially without Beal. He was dominant for a stretch of time. Outside of that, it gets very tough very quick. Isaiah Thomas is not a guy I want exposure to in any format tonight. His minutes, he did see 24 last night, but relative to that, he's been kind of trending down. He is, can I say this now that he's he's my streak bet? Yeah,
let's talk about it. We teased it a little, talking about how you had something to say about Isaiah Thomas. This is one of your sharp side lock bets here. So tell me your sharp side lock bet, and then I'll go into mine afterwards.
So yeah, this is my lock bet. I have under 11.5 for Isaiah Thomas. It's a mark he's hit 3 times, I think, in his last 12 games. So him getting double-digit points has been a struggle, and you can kind of look at the minutes and get an idea as to why that is. There's been plenty of times over the last 10 where he has not even seen 20 minutes. So he's going to need to be pretty efficient with that court time if he's going to hit that number. And I think the other thing he's got going for him, or maybe going against me and my bet, is that the Cavs backcourt is not good defensively. So he will probably have an advantage in that way early on. I just don't know that the court time is going to give him enough of a chance to get there. So he's I like your bet as well, which I think we'll get to a little bit later on, but I definitely feel good about the under 11.5 for Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, well, Devin's got the graphic up now, so the people already have seen it probably, so we'll just talk about it now. I got Jared Allen at over 9.5 rebounds. Bet that one earlier in the day, and you and I were talking when we got on air. You said, actually, I got the good closing line value, right? It's at 10.5 rebounds now. I got it the 9.5, which is great. The projections seem to have him at like around 12-ish rebounds. And the reason why is, Jared Allen, he's like the only big man in town right now. And we'll kind of break that down once we get deeper into the slate. But that is my lock bet. I love Jared Allen in this spot, despite it being the Lakers, right? You'd think that's not the easiest matchup to rebound against, but he's the only show in town. That's kind of the reasoning. And player props aren't that efficient, in my opinion. And they're just not calculating for what's going on in that situation. But let's dive in and keep talking about these guards. You talked about Isaiah Thomas. Sounds like a guy that we're going to X out of our player pool. I'm not looking at him too much. I think Yahoo, he had an interesting price, I believe it was. I was looking at some of the RG optimals and whatnot, and he does have a cheap enough price tag where you can consider it. But I don't know how much I'm going to get of him. Jordan McCree, we talked about him a little. He has that 50-point upside here, and this is the perfect game environment for him. What are you kind of doing with him here?
I do like it as a GPP target, especially given the 3 and 4, 3 games and 4 nights for Washington. I could see if they do ease up on Beal at all, you would think that McCree will be the winner there. He's one of the best creators on the ball that they have. So if Beal's minutes are limited in any way, it would stand to reason that McCree is a winner. So if he was a little bit cheaper, I think I'd be even more interested. He's still his price has come down from when he was dominating without Beal, but it's still not maybe at a level that represents his current role. So there is if you're rolling out multiple GPP lineups, I think he's perfectly fine to have in the pool and probably wise to include in there. Single entry, I don't think he'll make the cut. If he's a last guy in, I'd be perfectly fine with that given the ceiling, but not a guy that I'm trying to jam in there.
Yep, I'm with you on that. By the way, we got Dan Bach in the chat, and he's saying, here's an expert tip for you guys. Any game that's minus 140 on the sharp side streak, if it counts, if you like Cleveland, just take the money line instead. You don't have to lay that too. Just take the money line, and it still counts as the same thing for the streak contest. So that's some good stuff from the boss man, Dan Bach. Appreciate that, helping the people out win some, good old money. Let's talk about these.
Oh my goodness!
We got soccer.
Look at this guy right here. I am so proud of you right now.
We got to put a lock on this door. I'm going to tell you right now. We need a lock on this door.
Right now. Well, all that time we've been training, and I was in the gym. I missed the opening. How was it? Was it good?
It was good. We've been rolling so far.
Right. You kind of make sure to look at that camera.
Okay.
That camera.
I
appreciate
so
Dave.
I appreciate
Monkey Knife Fight promo code Grinders gets you $50 off. You know that?
I know that.
Tell them.
Yeah. All right. How about you make your way out of here?
Pockets on swole.
Post workout. Yeah.
SBK.
Get them on swole.
Iron Keys on Twitter. Hit them up.
We got to get security in here. We got to get locks on these doors.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Can't have that happen.
That may have been the best photo or video bomb since Becky back in the day at the RG party. But Soccer Dave jumping in to say hi, even though his Titans are out of the Super Bowl. Glad we don't have to deal with him being so irritating in Nashville in a couple of weeks. Let's dive in and talk about this Cleveland value, because I think there's a lot to like here with these guys, right? And it's because of the matchup. It's not that I like Chetty Osman. It's not like I like Darius Garland or Colin Sexton. It's just I love the matchup here. So which one kind of sticks out to you as the best value?
So I think it's somewhat site dependent. Garland is 4.7, I believe, on FanDuel. If he's 5.5 on DraftKings, and given that Sexton and him are fairly close in salary on DraftKings, I'll go Sexton 100 times out of 100 over there. I think the decision is a little bit tougher on FanDuel, especially given that you have the roster 2 point guards. So I think Garland is a better play on FanDuel. I'll definitely have more exposure to Sexton on DraftKings, but Sexton on FanDuel is also a fine target at 6K. So both these guards, I think, offer value over there. I think Garland is someone I'll probably avoid on DraftKings, though.
Yeah, one thing I really like about Sexton, if you're in the lineup HQ right here, you can click on his name. I had to click. You pull up his game log SBK and you slide on over. You can see the usage numbers, right? And the usage has gone up. If you look earlier in the year, it was a lot lower. It was in the low 20s, but that was because of Jordan Clarkson. With Jordan Clarkson gone over his last 3 or 4 games, he has an over 30 usage rate. I love that from Sexton. They're really giving him that burn and run that he needs. And this matchup against Washington, it's perfect. They like to go small. So I expect Sexton to get decent run. I think he's a really, really strong tournament option. We got him over here at 26% ownership. Garland's another guy you talked about. He's a little salary relief play here from Stevie. What about Chetty Osman? I saw him popping in some stuff. Any interest in having him as a value play?
I think just given the nature of the game, that this is a place where Cleveland should score more than they generally do. his minutes, like Cleveland's playing their starters for big chunks of minutes, especially the games that stay even remotely competitive. So if he can see 30 minutes of floor time, there's absolutely a path to him hitting value. I think he's 4-4 on both sites, I believe. So there's definitely an opportunity for him to finagle his way into hitting GPP value. Not probably a guy I'm itching to roster in cash games. The floor is obviously fairly low, but anybody on this slate in this game that we can get at that price that's seeing those types of minutes, I think it's viable. It's just not something I'd feel great about going in, but would not shock me if he ends up, 30 fantasy points. And at that price, that's great return.
Yeah, last two guys I'm thinking about that we should touch on here to kick off this game is Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson, right, against the Wizards. This seems like a great spot for them. I get it. Tristan Thompson, his price isn't the best. It's probably Kevin Love is like the better point per dollar guy. We got him at a 5.3 point per dollar. Who's your favorite of the two?
So DraftKings did a better job, I think, of pricing these guys than FanDuel did. FanDuel just doesn't really seem to have interest in raising those prices, even given the matchup. Thompson's 5.9K on FanDuel, which I think is going to lead to him being fairly popular. I believe that Whiteside's probably the only other real true center that people are going to want to get exposure to. So we should probably see Thompson fairly popular on FanDuel. I think the DraftKings price is going to make it tougher for people to go there. But between the two, I definitely have more interest in Kevin Love on both sites. He's my favorite power forward target on FanDuel, and the 8.1 tag on DraftKings isn't prohibitive, I don't think. So I will absolutely have more exposure to Love than Thompson, and I think Thompson is actually probably going to be one of my favorite fades on this slate. Even at the 5.9 on FanDuel, I think I mentioned this earlier, but the Wizards have been a little bit better against centers since Jan Mahinmi took over. Mahinmi himself, I think, is also a GPP option and somewhat of a suitable pivot off Thompson. But yeah, so I don't think I'm going to end up with much exposure to TT.
Well, the thing I'll ask you is with ownership, right? SBK, like he's 4% over here on the RG ownership, and it's 34% for Kevin Love. Do you think like there's GPP upside there for you to take that chance at the ownership? Because I think that's something definitely to talk about.
There is. I think you're going to need to have everything pretty much go perfectly right, though. At 7.3, he's going to need a pretty big game to make value there. So, I mean, just especially we haven't gotten to touch on the studs in the later games yet, but given that they are more of a priority for me, I don't see myself spending that type of cap on Tristan Thompson, especially that given even the 5.9 tag on FanDuel, I'm not too excited to play him. So I get what you're saying, and I think it does make sense, but for me personally, that's not an avenue I'm going to take.
Yeah, and one reason I mentioned that is because his ownership, right, 4%. Reason why is going to be just to kind of give people like the quick overview of the slate. Jared Allen and Hassan Whiteside are two of like the chalkier options on the entire day. If you look at lineup HU, they're going to take up a lot of ownership. I think they're going to be like the cash game building blocks. You got Allen at 53%. You got Whiteside at 42%. So a guy like Tristan Thompson, all those centers, like just basically any center is naturally going to go under owned. So that's kind of the reason for Tristan Thompson having that really low ownership, and you can roster Kevin Love at that power forward position. Guys, before we kind of dive in and talk about these studs and some of the better players, please hit the like and subscribe for us. We really, really appreciate that. We need 200 likes. We get 200. You get Blender's Roto Academy course that teaches you how to do a little MME builds, shows you his process and strategy that he goes through every single day. SBK, now let's dive in and talk about the studs, right? We'll take out the Washington and Cleveland game here on the lineup HQ, and we'll look at the last two games. We got Lakers, Brooklyn, Dallas, Portland. We got Dame, Luka, Kyrie, LeBron. All the stars are out tonight. Who's your favorite of the studs?
I'm going to go with Luka for right now. I think Anthony Davis is currently listed as questionable. If he were to sit, that obviously brings LeBron up a notch. But I do stacking the Dallas-Portland game, I think, is going to be the approach I'm going to take in single-entry tournaments. So it kind of makes sense for me to go Luka there as well. So I think if I can only roster one of these guys, it's Luka tonight.
Yeah, so I agree with you, right? Luka's an amazing play. He's someone I want to get to. The price tag, it's a little tough, right? And the value, right? Like I see value in Jared Allen, right? Jared Allen's a value play for me at 5.9. I don't have these 3K values, so I don't know how much Luka I'm definitely going to get. If I can find a way to get him, sure, I'm going to play Luka. Like I'm not going to not do it. It's against Portland, an amazing matchup. While we're talking about him here, one thing I want to mention, I'll pull up the I'll pull up the RotoGrinders Court IQ. If you look at Luka, he has one of the best DVA matchups here on the defensive archetype tool. He's a combo guard, and the Blazers, they are 29th against combo guards. And one thing, if you scroll over, and if you look on the right of my screen, you can see it here. This is the rebound numbers, and I'll scroll down and I'll show you guys because I think this is super interesting. You see the 35 number here. It's in the right-hand corner. It's a pain to go down and scroll, but he is the number one rebound percentage, spot on the entire slate based on, the rebounds versus average position. So this is a great rebound spot for a guy like Luka. So maybe that triple-double upside is really there tonight because he's going to get those assists. He gets the rebounds too, but just an even better opportunity for him. I'll tell you who my favorite stud looks like it's going to be. And I think it's probably going to be a guy like a Kyrie Irving, right? Still, if you look at the lineup HQ, he's got a nice 5.4 point per dollar salary, and it's going to be a really good spot, right? He's going to command so much usage. I understand the matchup isn't the easiest, but that's kind of when Kyrie thrives a little bit. In those matchups where, he has to shoot the ball, he has to kind of create his own shot and do his thing. I like Kyrie here. What do you think about him at 5.4 point per dollar?
So I kind of call him like a big game hunter. He's a guy that I think gets up for these types of games, especially a game against LeBron, Anthony Davis. There's obviously some extra added motivation for him, I think. There's been no note of a minutes restriction. He missed the last game against Philly on Martin Luther King Day, but no word of any restriction, and I wouldn't expect one at this point. So at 8.4 on DraftKings, I do like that play a lot. I think he's even a nice kind of secondary stud if you can. I think there'll be ways to roster him alongside one of LeBron or Luka Doncic, perhaps to roster some uncomfortable value perhaps, but there's definitely ways to make that work. And I do like that call at his price too. There's definitely a ceiling there.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him at 9K, 9.5K. I get it. The matchup's not the easiest in the world, but he seems to be maybe my favorite stud at the top, if you force me to pick, but there's so many, right? Let's dive in and talk about LeBron, right? What are you doing with him with Anthony Davis? How are you kind of approaching that situation on this slate?
So he's obviously a fine play regardless. If Davis is out, that might, especially on DraftKings where he's 10-4 and Luka's 12-3. If we we will have word before that game locks and before Doncic locks as well. So that'll probably push me toward LeBron, especially I think you made a good point about there not really being any totally trustworthy value toward toward minimum price, which kind of would make that 12.3 price tag a little bit easier to fit. So I think if we get word that Davis is out and it's going to be LeBron's show against Kyrie and Brooklyn, they actually they did play last night as well in New York, but it's a non-travel back-to-back, so I like that for LeBron. But yeah, I mean, if he's without AD, you're going to see 35, 36, 37 minutes. He hasn't been great in the games without Davis this year, but most of that is because he hasn't shot the ball well. The peripheral stats are still there, still racking up assists, still racking up rebounds. So if the shooting comes around a little bit better, he's could very easily be the top scorer on the slate. So a lot of this is still dependent on injury news. We only have 3 games, but 2 of them have pretty impactful news that we're still waiting on. So it's going to be another one of those nights where you're just going to have to kind of keep your eye on the RotoGrinders DFS Alerts app, wait for that news, and react to it when we get it.
Yeah, so SBK, talk to me about if AD is out. Let's say he's randomly scratched. Wouldn't be the first time that's ever happened. We're kind of expecting him to play, but there's a chance he doesn't. So let's say he doesn't play. I got up here the court IQ. What are you kind of liking here? We see LeBron gets a 36.2% usage bump. Kyle Kuzma, 25.3%. Rondo could be interesting, right? His fantasy point per minute at 1.15. He gets some burn. What do you kind of think is the best move to go here?
So Kyle Kuzma will be the guy who probably starts if Davis is ruled out. One thing I did want to touch on actually outside of this Davis news is that with DeAndre Jordan out, there really isn't a backup center on the Nets that will see any type of minutes. And if Allen gets in any kind of foul trouble early, they could be in big trouble. And the Lakers happen to have 2 centers who are very good per minute producers, JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard. Both of their values would rise even further if we don't have Anthony Davis. So I kind of like them as kind of off the radar a bit GPP plays. I think Howard will probably carry somewhat of an ownership. And both of them will probably be fairly popular if Davis does sit. But given the lack of depth in the front court for Brooklyn, this could absolutely be a spot where, if given the opportunity, one of them smashes. So I think that's interesting. Rondo, the court IQ numbers certainly look good. He's kind of a guy where you don't really know where the minutes are going to go. They're going to be around 20. If he gets you to 22, 23 without Davis, there's absolutely a path to him being valuable and being one of the better value guards. So those, I think the two centers, Rondo and Kuzma, all become viable. And even a guy like Danny Green, he'll, once in a blue moon, he will give you that 30, 35-point outing when he's shooting 6 of 10 from three-point range, racks up a couple blocks and steals. So he has those games, and those are kind of the games that you kind of need if you're going to be at the top of the GPP on a night like tonight. So I don't mind looking in that direction either.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention too with, again, this, I love looking at the defense versus archetype tool here on RotoGrinders. Rajon Rondo actually pops in some spots, right, in this situation, just in this matchup. Even if AD plays, he sees a 16.46% usage bump, which, again, if Rondo's getting usage, I want some Rondo. So he seems like a good tournament play. His shots go up 28.22%. The 3 points goes up. We know Rondo's not chucking a ton of them. And even the assists go up at 8%. So, yeah, I think there's some opportunity for Rondo to maybe have that type of upside game. So, yeah, that's something I definitely looked at here, looking at this defensive archetype tool that I think was worth talking about. One thing you mentioned, too, with JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard, let's say that they end up becoming, chalkier options. I don't know how the ownership will shake up, but we already have, like, Allen and Whiteside being taken up by a ton of roster spots. So what's going to happen is either guys like Allen and guys like Whiteside, one of those two, or both, probably just one of them, will become a lesser-owned play, and then one of those Lakers will shoot up. So there's opportunity to really leverage in GPPs. I think what will happen is people will play Allen and they'll play McGee, and then I think Howard and Whiteside would be the more under-owned options, I guess you could say. What do you think about that?
I agree on that 100%. Yeah, I think you said it perfectly.
Yeah. All right. Let's dive back in. Let's talk about, we talked about this Lakers situation. I think you broke it down really well. Let's shift over to another star. Let's shift over to Damian Lillard. Daladane, he went off the other night. It was an awesome, awesome game. Loved watching it. And I'm expecting his usage. I think it's like 33%. It was the last game. I'm expecting it to still be in that same ballpark. And we obviously need the CJ McCollum news. So talk about Damian Lillard, how you want to approach him at that 9.9K price tag with and without CJ McCollum.
So this is another game environment I like. I think if McCollum is ruled in, the 229 total seems a little bit low to me. This seems like a game that should be in the low to mid 230s with how these teams play. Portland is not good defensively. Dallas is the best team in the NBA in terms of offensive efficiency. So I think there could be a lot of offense here. And if we don't have McCollum, Lillard is once again going to run the show. He'll be a great target. Even in the game between these two teams on Friday night, McCollum left pretty early, so we didn't see a ton of him. And this game still went over. I think it ended up landing in the mid 230s, maybe the high 230s. But Lillard and Luka both looked great. Lillard started a little bit slow, came on kind of later. I think with McCollum in, the 9.9 tag and the fact that he's coming off of like a 1 million-point fantasy game might kind of skew his ownership a little bit upwards of where it probably should be. But, yeah, without CJ, I mean, he's dominant. We see a 38% usage rate there, 1.61 fantasy points per minute. Those numbers are absurd. So in a game where we should see a lot of offense, I love it as a GPP target. I don't think he'll get much love at the top with LeBron, Luka, Kyrie available for a pretty a non-negligible discount, I would say. So I think he'll probably get lost in the weeds a bit especially if we don't get that McCollum news till later on, closer to tip, and there's really not much in the way of pivoting options. So I think he'll go a little under-owned, and he absolutely has a ceiling here for sure.
Yeah, real quick, guys, we're only at 56 likes over here on YouTube. We got to get to 200. If we get to 200, we get to see Blender's, Roto Academy course, which breaks down multi-entry. So, guys, please hit that like now for us. We got to get it by the end of the show, and this show ends at 6:20. It's in 30 minutes, and I'm just going to keep saying it until we get it, guys, because I want to give you some free stuff. So, just do it now. That way we can keep diving in and talking about the slate. I do want to touch on this, situation a little bit. Hassan Whiteside, right? And one reason why he's really chalky. The usage 19% is whatever, but the fantasy point per minute, right? 1.27, and all of the stocks he can get, all of the rebounds. I'm not that worried about, Dallas on the rebounding end. This could be a really big spot for Whiteside. You could see that 2020 game. That's one reason why I think he's going to be a really chalky option. How are you approaching him at his ownership, though? Is he worth fading possibly? We know Whiteside can, just absolutely sometimes look like a disaster out there, but I kind of just don't think this is the spot to mess around and get too cute.
So, there's obviously paths to fading him that I think make some sense. Tristan Thompson, more so on FanDuel, I think it's a little bit easier to work him in when you have the 2 center spots to play with on DraftKings. But on FanDuel, where the price difference between him and Tristan Thompson is massive, I think for that reason we'll probably see more people on Thompson. But the big thing that I like with Whiteside, and people have probably started to notice this over the last week, is that his minutes have been trending up. And as long as he's staying out of foul trouble, he's absolutely a guy that could see 35 minutes in this game. So given the per minute upside, which has always been massive his entire time in the league, if he's playing 34, 35 minutes, the ceiling is very high. And Dallas kind of lacking bigs at this point. We haven't really got to them yet, but Dwight Powell is out with an ACL injury. You'll see more Maxi Kleber there, Kristaps Porzingis, and those are 2 guys that I don't think really have a prayer of containing Whiteside down low. His rebounding numbers should be high. I would expect a fairly nice block number. So he is a tough fade for sure. And I think, especially given that I like the environment of this Dallas-Portland game, I think more than the industry does as a whole, I think he's a guy that I'm going to lock in fairly early.
Yep, I agree with you. We got a couple QQs here that I want to dive into, and then we'll get back talking about the Portland situation. We got a Yahoo QQ from Flim Flam. Mahinmi or Nance in a GPP? I know John Henson is back, but Nance still a pretty good play?
I would go Mahinmi in that one for sure. I think Nance has a little bit of GPP viability given his price tag and his propensity to put up decent per minute numbers when given the opportunity. But we got word, I think like a minute before we started the show, that John Henson's going to play. That could potentially eat into a minute or two. And given that Nance isn't seeing a ton as it is, I think that makes him riskier. So
yeah, we have Nance at 20. We have Nance at 23 minutes, and we have Henson at 10. Does that sound about right to you right now?
Yeah, I think that's fairly accurate. I could see, Nance I think was in the mid to higher 20s against New York, but they didn't have Henson in that game. So I could see the split being a little bit more even. It's kind of tough to know what Cleveland's going to do at the back end of their bench. So yeah, I think Mahinmi is the easy answer for me there.
All righty. We got another QQ here. It says, what's the max player amount what's the max player amount from one team I should use on this small slate? What do you kind of think about that, SBK?
I'd say it kind of depends a little bit on the team you're targeting. I think we actually do have some optimal lineups. I think Yahoo is one of them where there's 4 Cavs in there.
Yes, that's the one I saw.
Yeah, so I think it kind of depends on the team a little bit. Dallas is another team where I could see 3-4 guys making sense. You have Luka. You're not going to probably roster him and Porzingis together, but Maxi Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith all have some viability. So I'd say 4 is probably as high as I want to go. I couldn't really envision a scenario where 5 would make sense on a 3-game slate. So I'd say 4, and it kind of depends on the team to a degree as well.
Yeah. Also, don't be afraid to run it back too. If you're playing 4 of those Cavs, run it back. Get a wizard in there, a low-owned wizard in your tournaments. That's a good move. Philip Grandview, he's got a question. Is Wilson Chandler contrarian play on DK? What's your thoughts on that? Let's see what the projection's saying. What you got to say.
So he's contrarian, that's for sure. I just don't think it's an area we need to go. I don't think his per minute numbers are going to rise much given the lack of depth in the front court. They may play a little smaller. I would be surprised if he saw upwards of like 22, 23 minutes. And just given he's maybe a 0.65, 0.7 fantasy points per minute guy. So given that he's contrarian, that part is definitely correct, but not a player I'd really want to have in my builds tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was watching Blender do the early morning show at 11 a.m. and he was, he X outs all his guys and then he puts in the guys that he likes. And like, I wouldn't be putting Wilson Chandler back in. That's just me though. I don't think that would fit for me. I'd find a different contrarian play. Guys, again, hit that like for us. We'll do some questions towards the end of the show. We're going to keep diving in, but yeah, hit that like for us. We got to get to 200 and then we'll kind of diving into the QQs more, but we got to talk about some of these situations. We haven't talked about Simons here. He's a cheap value that you can consider. Is the price too much now, right? We were paying $3.2K for him at one point. Now it's $4.5K. What do you think about him here as a value?
He will not be in my builds. If McCollum's ruled out, that obviously changes things a bit, but we're going to have Trevor Ariza there now. It's kind of he's one of the kind of tougher guys to figure out on this slate, Ariza, given that we don't really know what the minutes are going to look like. We do know that he's going to start. So Simons, the per minute upside is generally not there. I think he was a little bit better per minute wise without Lillard relative to how he's doing without McCollum. So he's not a guy that I'm going to have included in my builds, no.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not the biggest fan of him. I think he's okay. I like Ariza more. Ariza's the guy. Man, they traded for him for a reason. This is like the perfect situation for him. When I first saw that Bazemore was getting traded, I was trying to think, what could they be doing? Like, why are they trading him to the Kings? Who could be the guy? And then Trevor Ariza pops my mind. Like, it just fits and makes so much sense. This Blazers team, they're pushing for the playoffs. They're trying to get there. They got Nurkic coming back as well. I love Ariza here. I think he's one of the better values. And if you look here on RG, we got him at a 5.6 point per dollar. He seems like a really good play. Small forward and power forward eligible at 3.5K. And he's tagged as a cash game play, a GPP play, a salary relief play. SBK Ariza, he might be my favorite Blazer behind maybe Dame and Whiteside.
I get it. And I think especially, we saw Bazemore when he was in that small forward role for them starting. He was generally around between like 29, 31 minutes. So, generally where we have Ariza projected right now. This was one of the toughest situations for me last night to try to figure out how this was going to shake out and how many minutes he would play in his debut here. I settled on 29. I could absolutely see 30. I think there's a chance he gets into the low 30s and maybe the mid 30s if things go right. The per minute upside obviously is a little bit concerning, but given the price and the expected minutes on this slate in a game that's going to be up tempo, I definitely understand the rationale for it. I think given the projected ownership, so we have him 28% on Draftkings. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have him at 28%, which I mean, I could see it even getting higher because again, like the value's not the greatest today. It's not the best value in the world.
No, and I think I want to say 40% projected ownership on FanDuel. So I think given that and just the uncertainty surrounding his role, I think there are some other options in that small forward spot that you can pivot to and feel comfortable with. I think there's enough, there are scenarios that you can envision here to where he, maybe doesn't get to his minute projection. And if that's not the case, then I think he's going to have a very tough time hitting value. So there are merits to fading. I think he is a pretty safe cash game play. I think we can probably pencil him in for minutes in the high 20s to low 30s. So just given the core time, he's going to be out there to basically shoot threes, defend some wings. So I definitely get it. He's not and never has been an exciting option, but his price tag on both sites, it is kind of hard to get away from him, especially in cash games.
Yeah, and speaking of shooting threes, I want to bring up Melo, who we haven't talked about yet. Does he have the GPP upside at 6K for you? If you look at the defense first archetype tool, this is the perfect spot for Melo. I just said shots by accident instead of spots because if you look, the shots versus average, he has got the best increase of anyone on the slate. So it looks like he's going to get the biggest boost in shots on this slate. And this is Carmelo Anthony, who's not afraid to shoot. Sounds like he's going to get some room to shoot with a 31.54% bump on that. He even gets a rebound bump, an assist bump. Just all these bumps go to him against the Blazers. Melo in tournaments or in cash games seems pretty tasty to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's allergic to passing. I think if he saw this stat, he'd probably want to get up 25 shots tonight. I think if McCollum sets that also does something for his ceiling and floor. I absolutely think he's viable in GPPs, and I think his ownership will be noticeably lower because of how popular Trevor Ariza is going to be. So I like that call a lot in tournaments.
Yeah, love that play. Guys, we're at 92 YouTube likes, man. We got to get to 200. We got 20 minutes to do it. And we got Dan Bach, we got Cam, we got the bosses in there. You don't want that. Don't get us embarrassed with them in the chat, guys. Hit us to 200. We want to get there, and we want to give you Blender's Roto Academy course where he shows you GPP breakdowns. And again, today's a 3-game slate. Have fun with doing your multi-entry, but tomorrow's the good one, right? Fridays are always great 10-game slates. So yeah, guys, please jump on in, hit that like for us. We would really, really appreciate it.
Are we going to be the first show to not get this 200 likes thing? That's not a precedent I want to set. So we have to find a way to get there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to set that. And I was on the show that hit the first 225. So I can't be letting down. This is no letdown spot with my first show with you, SBK. So
no, yeah, I don't want that at all either. So guys, hit that like button. Do not leave me out to dry in this first show.
Yeah, don't do that to my man over here. But let's talk about one of the best values on the slate. We haven't talked too much about the Nets. We talked about Kyrie a little bit. Kyrie's a guy that we like a lot. Think he's a great play. Let's talk about the Nets side of the ball a little. And let's talk about Jared Allen. This is what I was going to ask you when I was thinking about doing this show with you. I was going to say, what do we have Jared Allen's minutes for? You have him projected for 33 minutes. So who on earth is playing the other, 15 minutes or 12 minutes, however many it is? Who's playing the other center minutes? Because I just expect Jared Allen's going to get all the time at the center position.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. They don't really have a backup big right now. They have, in addition to DeAndre Jordan being out, Nick Claxton is also out. So they have really no depth in the front court. So there is absolutely a scenario where Allen plays 36, 38 minutes if he can stay out of foul trouble. The Lakers do like to attack the rim. They have a couple guys very capable of doing that. So if fouls rear their ugly head and they have to pivot away, I think we'll just see some smaller lineups with, even a guy like Wilson Chandler potentially seeing some center minutes. Regardless, they're going to be very small, and I think in that scenario it's going to be feast city for the Lakers. Anybody that can get to the rim there is going to be dominant. I think the two centers that we touched on earlier too, especially Dwight, if he sees backup minutes against Wilson Chandler as a center, that's going to be ugly for Chandler. So it's tough to know who's going to see the backup center minutes. I don't think it really matters much from an actual DFS perspective because none of those guys are really targetable, I don't think. But I could see some extra Taurean Prince, some extra Karis LeVert, those guys who are just kind of solid contributors could see more minutes as the Nets go smaller. But there's really no DFS viable option behind Allen that you could even think about pivoting to.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Absolutely love Allen, one of the best plays. Let's talk about the other guys. I mean, Dinwiddie at 7K, he feels a little bit expensive, but I think he can make some sense. The ownership's a little too close to Kyrie, right? I would like it as a leverage play if Kyrie was 37%, and then if you had Dinwiddie at like 10%. So maybe not. I'm not as in love with Dinwiddie. Joe Harris is 4.1K, and he's popping a little bit as a nice play at 5.3 point per dollar. And someone else, Donnie Watson, he had a question in the chat. He said, Cedi Osman or Joe Harris in DKGPP. So talk about Harris, and is that the guy you want over Cedi?
That's a tough one. That's actually a great question. I think those guys are very similar. They have similar minute projections, similar fantasy point per minute projections. I think I'd give the slight edge to Harris, but it's very close. But gun to my head, I think I'm going Harris there. It's tough. There's a couple kind of viable guys on this net side below 5K. I think my favorite of the bunch is LeVert, closely followed by Prince, but Harris is absolutely viable too.
Yeah, the one thing I worry about, and I talk about this a lot when I'm, rostering players, how many nets are too many nets? Because they're playing the Lakers. The Lakers are not a fun matchup. It's a very difficult one. And Kyrie and Allen, they're two I definitely want to get exposure to. So, I guess if you're building your multi-entry, like, is 4 nets too much? 3? Because, again, Lakers is not an easy matchup to deal with. Like, I love these values. And Prince, he's fine, too. Think he's a good play. You can mix and match. Harris, even LeVert. Like, all these nets are worth, mixing and match throughout your lineups. But I kind of get a little worried maybe putting 4 nets in my lineup.
I think it's a valid concern. The Lakers are third in defensive efficiency on the season. They have several capable bigs who are viable rim protectors. They're not a pushover by any means. I think 3 is probably as high as I would want to go. I think Jared Allen, we know he's going to be popular, and for good reason. We've kind of discussed why they have no front court depth. So I think he's a guy really regardless of what you're trying to shoot for with the build is viable. Kyrie, Dinwiddie, you're not going to play them together, obviously. So one of them, I think, is viable. And then those kind of value options where we have Harris, Prince, LeVert. I don't think I'd want to roster any of those 2 guys together necessarily. I think one thing that's important with the value here is to try to not roster guys together that sort of see value from one another in certain stat categories. So I think that's obviously always an important thing to consider when you're rostering multiple players on the same team. You don't necessarily want them cannibalizing each other's stats. So I think 3 would be the most I'd be comfortable with on this side. But in my single entry build as it stands now, I think I just have 1. I think it's just Jared Allen. So I'm not totally.
We got big news, SBK. I was going to show something on the lineup builder, but this is big. JaVale McGee is out tonight with flu-like symptoms. Would expect Dwight Howard to start. So yeah, that's really interesting. And I mean, I'm assuming AD is going to play because of that. He might force himself to play a little bit, but Things have changed. How does this kind of shake things up for you? Maybe we can pull up I'll pull up the court IQ and kind of take JaVale McGee off the court instead of Anthony Davis. We'll do that.
Okay, I'm going to I might be able to kind of do some real-time projection edits and kind of know, where we're going with the minutes here. I don't think we're going to move up on LeBron at all, 35. Davis kind of to be determined. If they say he's not on a minutes limit, I think we'll probably come up to 32 or 33. We have him at 31 right now. They've been monitoring his minutes a bit. Dwight Howard is going to be the big question mark. If he starts, I think a 26-minute projection isn't crazy. I think we'll probably be closer to maybe 24, 25. Kuzma probably gets a 1-minute bump. We had him at 27. I could see him going to 28. Rondo's even the guy. We have him at 19. I could see up at 20, 21. They don't really have much in the way of front court depth behind Howard in terms of centers. They haven't really needed it at all. So we could see Jared Dudley maybe work his way in. I haven't really looked at him at all today, so I don't fully know what the situation with him is. He's not a guy we project to be in the rotation with McGee in there. So
yeah, you got nothing on Dudley in here unless I've maxed out. I don't know. Probably
not generally a rotation piece with both those guys, with them healthy pretty much. If we see LeBron or Davis sit, he'd probably slide in there at a 10-minute projection, something like that. But yeah, I think Dwight Howard's a big winner here, and I think that might reshape the center projected ownership a decent bit. Given that I think going cheap at center is probably going to be the play now. I think that's going to dip Whiteside's ownership, I think, as you alluded to earlier. So yeah, I think that kind of changes. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's 100% going to change like Whiteside's ownership. Not saying he's going to just go under-owned by any means now, but that's something to look at in your GPPs for certain. So yeah, have to like that. Any other guys? I did the court IQ. I have it up on my screen. This is just with JaVale off. We see. Let's see what the bumps are. Right, the bumps and that's not the greatest. Horton Tucker, I don't think that's anything. You see LeBron and Davis, they get some usage bumps. At 2.3% and 2.8, and then no one else really gets huge bumps. Kuzma, right? Kuzma maybe could get a little bit more burn, I guess you could say. And with Anthony Davis kind of not feeling the best, if the Lakers are leading, right, they're not going to, just lean on Anthony Davis to do a ton. They might just kind of, put him on the bench earlier and give Kuzma some more runs. So that could help him as well, I would believe, right? Yeah,
one thing I think we should note is that we only had McGee projected for 16 minutes. So there's not a ton of extra playing time left to go around. I think a couple of those minutes, at least 3 or 4, potentially 5, are going to Dwight Howard. And then after that, it's pretty much just bumping a guy up by a minute or two. There's no real clear way that they'll divide those minutes up among the bench guys. So I don't think, just strictly from a minutes, where are they going? There's not a ton of them to be allotted. So I don't think this changes a ton. It certainly does make Dwight Howard and Kyle Kuzma a little bit more attractive, mainly Howard. But I just wanted to note that we only had him projected for 16 minutes. So as excited as we were about that news and what it might mean, it's not maybe as impactful as we might have made it sound initially.
Yep, agree with you on that. Guys, listen up. We got 134 likes. That is 66 short of 200. You have 10 minutes to get this done. 10 minutes not to embarrass us. 10 minutes to get Blender's awesome show that shows the GVP exposures, how he does his process, which is a great tool. You're going to get that for free all day tomorrow. So guys, please don't embarrass us. We're only at 134 likes. We got to get this done. So jump on in, hit that like button now. And, I'm going to keep saying it till we get it towards the end of the show. So yeah, let's dive in. We haven't talked enough about the Mavs, right? I saw someone in chat saying these guys haven't mentioned THJ yet. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about Porzingis. We said Luka, an amazing play. We get it. We know he's one of the best players on the slate. Not much to say. How about the other Mavs, right? How are you approaching these guys on this slate? Because if you look at these Mavericks, Porzingis being back, it's going to eat into some production. But now Powell went down, so Maxi Kleber has some nice minutes upgrade here. Hardaway Jr. is one of the better point per dollar. He actually is the best point per dollar here over here. So at 4.7K, a guy who's also shooting guard and small forward eligible, so you have that guard and forward flexibility, you can put him in many of your lineups. How do you think THJ is as a play?
So I do think all 4 of those guys that you have there, Hardaway Jr., Finney-Smith, Kleber, and Doncic are all more than viable. Maxey obviously gets a pretty sizable bump with Dwight Powell out. Powell was playing about 30 minutes a night, even with Porzingis in the fold. So Kleber, who was already seeing generally 22, 24, 25 minutes, even in that scenario with them healthy in the front court, he probably gets closer to 30 here and is counted on a little bit more down low. He's a pretty good shooter. I know he's great from the foul line. He can shoot the three. So given that he offers some rebounding upside, there's a little bit in the block steals. You might get something there. So at his price, he's one of my favorite value targets. I don't think that the Mavs will need to play a center with Whiteside off the floor. So I think we may see times where both these teams go a little bit smaller, and which is another reason why I think this game gets into the 230s. So Finney Smith is a guy who I think they're going to be counting on quite a bit without Powell there. I think Luka is going to miss the roll man a little bit. I think that could potentially dock his assist numbers slightly. I don't think it's a total that we might really notice. But Powell was a pretty good roll man for him. So I think that's kind of another thing to maybe consider on the Dallas side. But Hardaway Jr., absolutely viable. If he's playing 30 minutes, he's has always been pretty much reliant on points. If his shot's falling at that price, it's not tough. And Dave has walked in again.
How you feeling?
I don't know why we need him in here.
This is your first Grinders Live. You're always doing the projections. Here. There you go. There you go.
Flavored water?
Big boy is so
This
Look
guy,
at the camera.
okay.
Give those fire
How much
takes.
you get at?
Get 200.
yeah, give us 200 likes just for Dave making two appearances on
Did
this
you
kind
see
of
them
live.
wanting me to take my shirt off for 200 likes? Like they could handle this?
I didn't see that. I think if we get 200 likes, we should not have to see you with your shirt off. It's not a pretty sight. I work with the guy. It's not. You do not want to see that. He's
Look at the camera. Tell them.
This is the Dave Kitchen special. Let me tell you something about Dave Kitchen. He needs to be the center of attention,
Look at the
even when
camera
it
when you
has
tell
nothing
something.
to do with him. He needs to be the center of attention at all times. That's just how he is. He just can't get over himself. If this is a situation that does not even remotely involve him, then what does he do? He ends up waltzing his way in here 2
I
times,
am your
making me
mentor.
drink some orange-flavored water. I don't want flavored water. This guy's unbelievable. I forget where we were before that happened. We got to get locks on these doors. This is
we were talking the Mavs, but
Tim
yeah,
Hardaway
listen,
Jr.
yeah, Tim Hardaway Jr. Yeah, he's a great play. Someone definitely to mix in and match through your lineups. 3.3K. You know, we don't have a lot of value. Seth Curry. Could he be a leverage play off of THJ? Let's say THJ picks up a couple of early fouls, right? And not a lot of ownership. Is that something that you can consider as like a tournament dart to maybe make your team unique? You know, you play a lot of chalk and then you head over to a guy like Curry as a cheap value play.
I'm going to give you an SBK guarantee right now. My first one on the show. I will not have any exposure to Seth Curry. That will not happen. I get that he could see an extra couple minutes with Powell out, but I don't think that jumps much. They don't play the same position. They don't have the same role even remotely. So at 21, 22 minutes, he's going to need a lot to go right. And as I said earlier, the SBK guarantee, I will not have Seth Curry in any of my lineups.
Yep. And listen, we got news, but before that, hit that like button so we can talk about this news and break it down, guys. Hit the like now. We're at 167, guys. We got to get to 200. We got to get there. So hit that like now. But we got big time news. We're breaking it down for you. Hassan Whiteside, he's available. And CJ McCollum, he is out. So no CJ McCollum. SBK, we talked about the situation a little bit, but let's dive right in again and talk about it. We'll pull up the usage and discuss again.
So I think, how you touched on Melo. He's got a lot of things going for him on this slate, and now even more so with McCollum out. Can you go down to the differential numbers?
I probably
scroll
can.
down a little bit.
Yeah, let me scroll down to that. I was talking to the chat, and guys, start putting your questions in there so we can hit those up. We got like 5 minutes left. So yeah, I'm at the differentials. You want me to pull up the usage?
Yeah, that looks good. I mean, that's kind of what we would expect. Damian Lillard's seen an 8.1% bump. He becomes a very viable target in all formats, even more so than he was before. I think he'll also be more popular now, but the ceiling is immense without McCollum there, and especially in this type of environment. Outside of that, I mean, it's kind of strange to see Melo's numbers take a little bit of a dip. I would imagine that the sample size there minutes-wise, I can't see that on the screen right now, but I would imagine that that's pretty small. So I wouldn't put a ton of weight into that number. I still think I'm targeting him pretty confidently. And it probably does make Simons a little bit more viable here. But I think, Lillard, Whiteside, and Melo are going to be the three guys that I'm going to want to focus on there. I don't think I'm going to be going to Portland for much value outside of Trevor Ariza.
Yeah, I'm the other way. I probably will go for those values. And someone asked them, we'll pull it up now. What do you have Ariza's minutes at? And we currently have him at 29. I'm assuming you guys already have him. You have CJ not in there. So is anything really going to change with the projection? Sometimes like sites and even you guys, you're not as aggressive based on the situation. You'll move some stuff up. Is there anything that you'll move now, or you just have this situated for CJ being out?
So we still do have McCollum in there. That should be touched up in a minute. I would assume that Simons probably goes to closer to 30. We'll see a little bit more from Gary Trent, who posted a big game the other night. I think that might have been that Dallas game. I forget exactly where that game was, but I know he had like 40-something fantasy points.
Yeah, it was on his birthday. It was the birthday game, the whole narrative. It was on the first start. Yeah, it was Dallas. Or no, it wasn't Dallas. It was OKC. He was 3K, played 36 minutes.
Yeah, the night after. I don't think I'll be going there. But yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of playing time to be divvied up there. He's projected for 35 minutes. It was a little bit conservative given that he was questionable. I usually have him at 36 or 37 minutes. So not much is going to change at the top. Whiteside, Melo. We could see Lillard go up to 38, but other than that, and he's played over 40 in some games where they haven't had McCollum. So you'll see bumps to Trent. You'll see bumps to Simons. But again, I'm not terribly enthralled with roster either of those guys. I certainly get the ceiling that could come with both of those guys, but I don't know. They're just I think the projected ownership is going to rise certainly on those two. So they're not as sneaky at this point, especially on a site like FanDuel that locks at main lock. We already have this news, so that kind of takes any surprise out there. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be mostly the high-end option guys on Portland for me.
All right, we're going to dive into some QQs. We got a couple minutes for it, and we're at 186 likes, guys. Only 14 more. Get this thing done. You get Blender's video. Do this now. You can get that free stuff that we'll be tweeting out on the RotoGrinders Twitter account. Now we're going to do some rapid-fire QQs, SBK. I'm landing on McCree or Bertans or Kleber or Hardaway. So these are the four: McCree, Bertans, Kleber, Hardaway. Who do you like better tonight of the four?
Picking one of them?
Yep, just one.
I'm going to go Bertans.
All right. Gary Trent and Simons, large field GPPs. It sounds like guys you want to be overweight on?
No, not me personally. I get the thought process, but that's not where I'll be.
Yeah, I think it depends on your construction, for sure. How many minutes we did the Ariza? How many minutes question? I
will touch on that a little bit, though. I think 29 is I was somewhat conservative and knew that going in last night. I could certainly see 32 or 33 here, but this is his first game there. We do know he's going to start. We just don't know exactly what the role will look like, who's going to kind of come off the bench behind him, and how much run they're willing to give him in the first game of the team. So I think there's an upside for 33, 34. 29 is a little conservative, so I just didn't want to be way overweight there in a situation we don't really know a ton about.
Yeah, and we got Boban in a GPP. What's your take on Boban?
Not crazy. I think it worked out pretty well in the showdown slate on Tuesday night. We just had one game. He's going to play some minutes. I'm pretty sure of that. It's just kind of a matter of how many. I think he saw 15 or 16 when Powell came out the other night and was pretty dominant in those minutes, as he always is from a per minutes perspective. So it's not the craziest thing. I think, especially with a guy like Dwight Howard becoming more popular now, that Boban might end up with 1 or 2% ownership. So there's certainly a path to that. And if he plays 20 minutes, I mean, we'd all be rostering him if we knew that going in. So if he gets a little bit more run, there's certainly a path to him being valuable.
Yep, I agree with you on that. We're running out of time. We're going to close the show out here. We got to get 3 more likes. It's only 3. So hit 3 likes in the next minute or so as we close this out. SBK, give me one of your best plays of the slate, like a conviction play. Who's a guy that you want to be overweight on, a guy that you like a lot tonight?
I'm going to go Colin Sexton. I think we kind of touched on him a little bit earlier. I think you said you would like him a lot as well. But the usage has ticked up. I think you made a good point. Sans Clarkson with Exum playing more minutes there. Obviously, Exum is not the type of scorer, so they're relying more on Garland and Sexton, as they probably should, given the nature of that team. They're rebuilding. They want to see what they have in those two guys. And the atmosphere couldn't be any better. Washington's the worst. Washington and Cleveland, the 2 worst defensive teams in the NBA. So getting that and a guy that likes to shoot, can tack on a couple of assists here and there. Generally not too good on that in that category, but I think he's kind of the guy that I'm making a point in the mid-range to be pretty heavy on.
Yep, I like that call. Mine is Trevor Ariza. Love Trevor Ariza in this spot. We talked about it, the minutes, everything. I just think he's the perfect guy for them to trade for. It fits their team very, very well. So that's going to be my guy that I like a ton. We got to get on out of here, though. It was great doing a show with you, SBK. Any final thoughts for the people?
Did we get to 200?
We did, 213. So we made it, man. We did it. We didn't disappoint. And I think it was a good first show for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. I'm certainly hoping to hop on more often. I would assume that I was probably looking in the wrong direction for the majority of this time. I get so locked in on looking at my screen and kind of what I want to be talking about that I forget that there's a camera on me. So I think that's the one thing that I can probably work on a little bit and hopefully get better after next time. So this is my rookie year. Looking at having a big sophomore performance when I come back. So, just getting my feet wet here and, hopefully it'll be a learning experience of sorts.
Yep, we drafted you for your potential. We saw the ceiling in you, so we'll have you back for the next show. And hopefully I'm back with you. It was a good time doing the show. But we got to get on out of here. For me, Travis Mangone, and SBK, we're out of here.